Okay, so Edward was lying on his deathbed, and the time was kind of imminent, and they would have family members come and sit with him at different times. So his granddaughter Emily was sitting with him, and all of a sudden Edward just started noticing a familiar smell, and all of a sudden he realized it was apple pie, and apple pie is his favorite thing. And he said, "Oh, Emily, your grandma is making me an apple pie so that I can have one last slice before I die. Would you just go out there and get a piece for me?" And she said, "Sure." And so she skipped out, and she came back in, and she was empty-handed. And he said, "Emily, where's the apple pie?" And she said, Grandma said that it was for later. It was for the funeral." Bring some light into the day. Okay, so tomorrow is Memorial Day, and it is a day that traditionally we take time to honor those who have given their life in service to our nation. And I thought, no matter where we're at on the scale of thinking war is okay or thinking war is not okay, the fact is that these people did give their lives in service to our country so that we could be sitting here today and have the freedoms that we have, and also the freedoms that we have fought for other countries. And so I think it is important to just think and to send them a blessing. Because that's what tomorrow is about. But also we know that Memorial Day encompasses so much more than that. It's a day that we ourselves remember our loved ones, and we honor them. We think about them more on that day. And from Ecclesiastes 3:1-8, it says, "To everything there is a season, and a time for every purpose under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted," and it goes on. Life is in a constant state of change. I always like to say the one constant that we can count on is that life is going to change. And one of the biggest changes that we experience in life is this thing that we call death. And the thing about death is that we don't talk about it as a culture. And in fact, I know many people who are just like, "Nope, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it." And yet it's something that we all experience on one level or another, whether it's the death of a loved one or a loved one has a death that they experience. And ultimately, my friends, we're all going to pass from this physical realm. 1 Corinthians 15:26 says, "The last enemy to be destroyed is death." And there's different ways that we can look at this, but today the way I want to look at it is that death itself is not an enemy. It's the idea of what death is. That's our enemy. Anything that we fear, anything that we resist becomes against us in a way. And so it's important that we talk about this. It's important that we delve into these conversations. I want to say just up front here that having especially moved through this experience with Sean, it really made me step into high gear and take care of the things that I needed to take care of in my own life. Having conversations with my children about what my wishes are, getting my will made, making sure that all my bank accounts are transferable on death, my deed, doing every single thing that I could, because I'll tell you, it's the hardest thing to go through the death of a loved one and then to have to deal with things that you really shouldn't have to be dealing with, like making decisions on what music do you want, or do you want to be cremated, or what are your wishes. And I just want to encourage you to strike out in these conversations with your loved ones, even if it is uncomfortable. Let them know where things are, your paperwork is, where your banks are. Let them, write something out that gives them a list of everything, so that part of it doesn't have to add to the pain of what they are already going through. So we're going to start this conversation this morning about what is death. I'm going to tell you right off the top that I don't have any concrete answers for this. So I'm going to share with you about what I've read from Unity, and of course what I've read from a lot of other sources. James Dillett Freeman is a great Unity poet, and I almost always use the poem The Traveler when I'm doing a celebration of life. And in it, he says, "What is death? It is no more than the opening and the closing of a door. And in your house, how many rooms there must be beyond this one where we rest just momently. And of course, we know in the Bible, it talks about that in my house there are many mansions, there are many rooms in this. And that is, of course, is what he's referring to. And it's the recognition that, my friends, death is an illusion. It's an illusion. It's not real, because this is not the reality of us. It's what we are embodying right now, but that which that breathes this is something so much greater and grander. One of the things that I always like to use, because I do think nature is one of our greatest teachers, is that a few months ago, if we didn't know better, we would have looked at those trees and we would have said, oh my gosh, the trees have died. And yet in the springtime, what we see is that not only do they blossom, it's an even a greater expansion of what they were the previous year. And the reality was the life was always in the tree. It had simply changed form. And that's the reality of our loved ones, is that they've changed form. But as I'm going to talk about in a few minutes, I believe that this life experience, when we move out of this body, we are expanded. We are more of, because of the experience of this physical life. Death is a continuation of life, both in a physical way and both in a spiritual way. So why do we believe this in Unity? Why do we believe this? And so the first thing I want to talk about is near-death experiences. Raymond Moody, who is a great author on near-death experiences, said that almost all the people that he researched, and he researched thousands and thousands of people who had near-death experiences, said that they are permeated and comforted with a sense of love and peace that is beyond description, a feeling of ineffable joy. And I went through a period of time when I first got into Unity that I was like hungry for these books, because I came in thinking death was an end. It was this black hole. It was a scary thing. I didn't want to talk about it. And as I read more and more about near-death experiences, my whole being just lightened up, because I recognized not only is there something beyond this, but it's beautiful. And it's beyond what any of us can possibly even begin to imagine. The experience of that is it's just so amazing. On July 5th, 1948, our co-founder, Charles Fillmore, was on his deathbed, and there were many people in the room surrounding him, and they said that he had this look of euphoria on his face. And he's kept saying over and over again, don't you see it? Don't you see it? It's glorious. It's absolutely glorious. And it made me think of the day that Sean passed, and we were in the living room. We were in the kitchen, I'm sorry. And I remember him just stopping and saying, look, he was looking around in the kitchen, but he was actually seeing something different. And he said to me, oh my gosh, people have no idea what is all around them. And, I have no doubt whatsoever that there is more than just this physical life. And that these near-death experiences are very real. And I truly have no doubt that on that particular day that Sean was, he was kind of in both realms. And he could see things that I couldn't see. And it was so amazing and so beautiful to him. There's many, many, many books out about near-death experiences. One of the most recent ones that is probably one of the biggest ones most recently has been the one with Anita Morjani and Dying to Be Me. And her body was racked with cancer, literally had fought this for 4 years. She goes into the hospital. Her body is just practically not there. They're taking her off life support. She is not going to live. And she has a near-death experience. And in this near-death experience, again, the whole experience was like beyond imagining. It was so beautiful and absolute purity of love. And she knew as she came back into her body that she was healed. Not that she was going to be healed. She knew that she was healed. But in this experience, she could see everything that was going on around her. And so when she finally woke up and she started telling them about things that were happening in another room that she couldn't have overheard. And even the doctors were just amazed by that. But one of the awesome things was that she came back into this realm, and she was healed. It was about I don't know how long, but it wasn't that long, and she was totally healed. In fact, when I went to Denver for the I Can Do It conference, she was one of our speakers, and it was just amazing to hear her story and to really hear about her experience beyond this physical realm. Another reason that we believe that death is a continuation of life is because of the communication with our loved ones after they pass. So I'm going to share with you some things that happened with my beloved, with Sean. The first Sunday that I came back to speak, first of all, I know that I think it was Richard and John were in the sanctuary. Nobody else was in the building, and all of a sudden the overhead lights came on, and immediately they were like, oh my gosh, it's got to be Sean. And I've read many times that those who have crossed over, one of the ways that they can communicate with us is through manipulating electronics, and so it's a very common thing. Well, I didn't know that until after the fact. So I'm in my office. I wasn't ready to come into the service yet, and my daughter and my mom were in there with me. And along the back of behind my chair is this row of bookshelves. And we're sitting there, and all of a sudden a picture frame fell off of my bookshelf. Now I'm going to tell you, I've been in that office for 8.5 years, and that's never happened. So immediately my daughter's like, oh my gosh, Mom, if you've ever seen the movie Ghost, have you seen the movie Ghost? This is the kind of stuff that happens. And so she starts saying, oh my gosh, Mom, it's Ghost. It's Ghost. Sean is here, and that's how he's getting our attention. So, and I totally, yes, I knew that to be true. Well, so it was that week. It was Tuesday of that week that I had one of my hardest days, where I just fell apart. And in my falling apart, I was just crying, and I was just saying, I don't understand, we're so connected. Why is it that I can't feel you more? Why, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? What do I need to do? Because I just want to feel you. I want to connect with you. And so nobody knows. I'm out in the backyard, and I'm crying this. Well, that night, one of our congregants that comes every so often, she Facebooked me. And she said, Sue, I didn't know whether to tell you this or not. She said, but sometimes I have experiences with people who have crossed over. And she said, I can't make it happen, but sometimes it happens. And she said, and when I read, because I put that on Facebook, and she said, and as soon as I read that, she said, I could literally see Sean standing on your right side. And I will tell you, when I sent Sean, he's always on my right side. I could feel him on your right side. And she said that he said to her, it's not you. I'm just trying to figure things out. Just give me some time. And the thing about that is that anybody who knew Sean knew what a researcher he was. He researched everything. He tried to figure everything out. And that it would say, it's not me. He was saying, it's not you, just give me some time, I'm trying to figure things out. And she kept hearing, ghost, ghost, ghost. So much so that it was like he wouldn't leave her alone until she told me about it. And I was like, oh my gosh, that just makes perfect sense. Well, fast forward to a couple of weeks ago, and my good friend Nancy Scrivener and I were sitting out back, and we were at there was a bonfire. We had a bonfire going, and we were just talking. It was a beautiful night. We were really just talking more in the joy and about Sean. And I said to her, the thing is that I wish that the veil was thin enough that when I wanted to communicate, and I wanted him to communicate with me, that it would just happen. And that was it. And then we just went on talking. So it was getting later, and we both started yawning, and I'm like, well, let's see what time it is. Well, 10:18 is my number for Sean, and there's a big story behind that, but that's my number, and I always know that's him. So I pick up my phone, and it's 10:18, and I'm like, oh my gosh, wow, that's interesting. So we go on up to the house. Nancy leaves. I go into my kitchen, and I go to put my phone down, and there's a picture of Sean on my phone. And it wasn't just a picture. Somehow I had inadvertently taken a screenshot of when he called me, so it looked as though he had just called me, and it said call ended up there. And I'm like, I mean, at first I just put my phone down and I stepped back because I'm like, oh, what? And then I started to look at it, and it was buried somewhere in my pictures in my phone. I hadn't been on that picture recently. And here's the more interesting part, is that last night I wanted to show that picture, and I went clear through my phone last night. I went clear through my phone today, and I cannot find it. So I'm like, well, he's figuring things out. And then to add to that, I had bought a picture from one of our artists here, and it was this heart, and it said crazy in love. And as soon as Sean passed, I knew I had to have that picture because we were just crazy in love. And so that picture is in my hallway, and there's a little post-it thing on it that has the title of the picture. And I was walking out of my bedroom, and all of a sudden that little post-it note fell off just at that moment. Has never fallen off before. And at that moment, I just stood there and I said, I get it. The veil is thin. You are right here. There was no doubt about it. I want to share with you something that somebody sent me to, again, just support this. It's actually Doug Henry's husband, Billy Joe House Henry. And he said I could share this with you. He said, when you spoke of the event that happened in the office, I immediately flashed to the event that happened last year. The pre-story is Doug's mom, Doris, was a character, and she had Alzheimer's. When we moved in with her, she had a routine of eating ice cream whenever she wanted. She loved chocolate ice cream, and she would eat it 24/7. When she became ill and was hospitalized and was diagnosed with cancer, we brought her home, and she ate ice cream until she passed away. I was still in nursing school, work, moving stuff from the other house. We had a lot going on. At work, I did many different tasks, fill and cook, activities, personal care, aid. So he says, here's where it begins. So at my work, there was a woman who came in to do therapy for the residents. She would help them walk and do balance therapy. And I've spoken to her off and on and hadn't seen her in a few months. She knew nothing of my home life or anything about me. Doris passed in April. I graduated in July, and in August is when this therapy girl walked in on a Sunday at work. So she came through the front door, and I stepped out of the kitchen to say hello. She came towards me to hug me, saying it's been a while. She missed my smile and my sense of humor. And when she hugged me, she stepped back and said, your grandma or mom or in-law are here, and they're so proud of you. And she wants to say thank you for helping her son through this. I looked at her and said, okay, and I'm thinking whatever in my head because I'm in the kitchen cooking a pot roast and veggies and focused on the food and not her. She followed me in the kitchen and said, she liked the way you changed the pictures in the hall. He puts in parentheses, Doris had pictures in the hall that nobody could touch. So after she passed, we put a picture of her up there and some different ones. I stopped in my tracks and said, okay. She said, you moved them around and put her picture up, and she liked it. And he says, I guess Doris was trying to convince me it was her and was telling the girl the layout of the house. The girl proceeded to say her bedroom was on the left at the end of the hallway, and that the bathroom is at the beginning of the hall on the right, and there is a vent in the hallway ceiling by the bathroom door. And if we remodeled the bathroom, to check the flooring because the tile is cracked behind the door and could have water damage. And he puts in parentheses, Doris was like an otter when she got out of the shower. Water was everywhere. And he says, which by now she had freaked me out because she named everything correctly, even a broken tile in the corner behind the bathroom door. She said that she liked what you did in the other room. She kept asking me if something was hanging from the ceiling in the kitchen. Doug and I put up a pot rack over the stove. The girl said that Doris liked that and said to make the house our own and for me to do the same with the yard. I had planted some flowers for Doris in the front yard. And the last thing that the girl said to me was a message. She said, the lady is showing me images of ice cream, chocolate. I want you to enjoy all the chocolate ice cream as much as you can. And he said, that made me cry a lot. I came home and told Doug, and we cried. Like, hello! You know, life exists beyond this physical realm. And of that, there is absolutely no doubt. How do we overcome death? And in Unity, what you're going to find is that our focus is life. The way that we overcome death is, first, we recognize that it's a natural and normal part of our life process. And again, we have those conversations that we need to have. But ultimately, it's by living. It's by fully living and embracing this life experience. Through this process with Sean, I don't know what it was, but it just really pressed in upon me. I could feel him saying, enjoy your life, embrace it. Enjoy this life experience. And I could feel that so strongly. And I know that, that's a message I think that all of us need to hear, is how precious this life experience is. This is a gift that you and I are embodied in these physical bodies, and that we have this glorious planet on which to live, and we've been given this thinking mind, that we've been given these co-creative abilities with the divine to shape and form and mold our experiences of life. This is an incredible gift that we have. Robert P. Sicking, a Unity minister, said the purpose of existence is to live, not to prepare for death. It is my firm belief that if we can develop the right kind of attitude toward death and dying, we can then turn our attention toward the more important matter of living life fully here and now. Elizabeth Lesser had an experience with a friend of hers who had died, and she said, whenever he visits me in my dreams, he tells me the same thing, to live my life fully. And I sincerely believe that our loved ones don't want us to stop and just stay in mourning for years over them. I believe that they now are on this journey that is, again, I think it's beyond what we can even begin to imagine. And they want us to continue this journey in life and to have the best possible life experience that we can have. I think that is so important for us. The bottom line for me is the reality is we don't know what happens after we lay this physical body aside. But I have faith, and my faith really goes to more of a knowing for me. And I can't imagine doing this without that. I can't imagine doing life without knowing that, and being present today without knowing that Sean is great, without knowing that he is every bit as much alive as he was when he was in this physical body, and he is present to each and every one of us, but he is having an experience that's even more amazing than you or I could ever imagine. So I believe that it's important to get clear on what it is that we believe about this thing that we call death, and lean into that, and then to embrace this life experience. I think I want to share with you from a personal perspective that it's especially special to me today that on Memorial Weekend, that Sean's family is here, his sister and his nephews, and that they're staying at our house, and that just feels so wonderful. I think it's just been so good for all of us to be in that same energy of Sean's essence, and I just think somehow Sean had a part in bringing this together for us, that this could work the way that it has. And really all I know is that they're here. They're absolutely here, present with us, and always loving us. So today what I want to encourage you to do is go and live. Go and live your life. Go and enjoy this life. Embrace it. Get out into nature and experience it, and live life, because as we sang, life is for living. Namaste. Namaste.